Good evening. The events of the movie begin with Alice, who is 38 years old and works as an editor at a fashion magazine, and it seems she traveled abroad for work. Then she returns to her country after finishing her work, and in the city, a man tries to flirt with Alice and tease her. But Alice is upset by his lack of manners and grabs a young man, forcing him to sit next to her so the man thinks he is her lover. The young man sitting next to Alice is named Cesar, who is 18 years old and still studying at the university in the architecture department. It turns out he behaves like a little child and is very excited because he is traveling for the first time in first class on the plane, and after the plane lands, Alice quickly leaves and forgets her work USB drive on the plane, and Cesar finds it. Cesar tries to catch up with Alice to return the USB drive but fails to catch her because Alice has left in the car that was waiting for her arrival. Alice returns to work but discovers that her colleague Annalise is trying to steal her position in the company and decides to talk to the manager about it, but the manager responds by saying that Annalise leads a more open life than she does and deserves the position she is seeking. The manager says that Annalise has formed many relationships with many men and therefore understands the diversity of tastes, unlike Alice, who was considered a divorced woman 8 years ago and relies only on work in her life to the point that she has forgotten how to deal with people to understand their tastes, and assures her that she will not be able to edit the magazine's content because she does not know the audience's interests and way of thinking. Alice is very sad and even more upset when she realizes that her USB drive containing all her work is missing, and then notices that her assistant left her a note saying that a young man named Cesar called to return the USB drive. Alice calls Cesar, who was with his friends at a nightclub and seems nervous after hearing Alice's voice for no reason, then tells her he is at the nightclub. Alice arrives at the nightclub and meets Cesar and asks him about the USB drive, but Cesar tells her he left it at home because it wasn't reasonable for him to bring it to the nightclub, and he also didn't expect to meet Alice, who rides with him on his simple motorcycle, but two of Cesar's friends take pictures of them because they think Cesar is having an affair with Alice. Alice arrives with Cesar at his home and finally finds the USB drive, then prepares to leave, but Cesar catches up with her and tries to talk to her. Although tension and shyness control him, then he boldly asks her to go out with him for a coffee together. But Alice understands what Cesar is thinking and tells him he will never get what he thinks because the age difference between them is too great. Moreover, she is a divorced woman, and her daughter's age is the same as Cesar's. The next day, Alice goes to work and notices that all her colleagues are looking at her strangely, and it's clear that what's happening is not a good sign because Alice's assistant tells her that her photos with young Cesar have spread on social media sites, and Ladies and gentlemen, the viewers who posted the photos, they are Cesar's classmates at the university who took pictures of him when he was with Alice at the nightclub. The unexpected surprise is that Alice's manager is very impressed by what happened because he thinks Alice fell in love with a student who is still studying at the university and is 20 years old. Less than her. And this news will help Alice in her work, according to her opinion, because Alice will be close to the thoughts of the young. And so the magazine that Alice is trying to edit will reach the largest number of different age groups. It is clear that the manager cares more about money than Alice's reputation, and it seems that Alice is forced to do everything to keep her job so that Annalise does not take her place at work, and eventually decides to stay with the student Cesar and goes to the university to meet him. And it is clear that her figure has become so attractive that the university students are impressed by her beauty despite her age. Alice's plan is to get closer to Cesar and enter into a relationship with him for a limited time so that her life remains stable. Then she meets him and invites him to a party in the evening. Cesar meets Alice and loses the ability to speak because her beauty and black dress are too tempting. Alice tries to pretend that she wants to get closer to Cesar so that everyone around her discovers that she is dating him. Alice is embarrassed by Cesar's actions, which indicate that his mind is still young about romantic relationships, and after the party ends, Cesar walks with Alice in the rain but tries to keep the distance between them so that Alice does not misunderstand his actions. And it seems that Alice lies to him by saying that her daughter is in the hospital to get rid of him quickly and another day. Alice takes Cesar with her to a fashion show related to her work. One of the models stumbles by mistake, and Cesar quickly moves to help her up, but he finds himself standing on the runway, and everyone is watching him. Especially the magazine manager, who feels that this time the fashion show is special because all the other fashion shows were boring for her. Cesar caught her attention, and Alice, in turn, takes advantage of the opportunity. Alice dances with Cesar, but dancing with each other ignited the spark of love between them, and after the party ends, Alice goes with Cesar to her home on his motorcycle, and Cesar seems to try to enter Alice's house, which she prevents because people might talk badly, and suddenly, Cesar confesses his love to Alice and tells her that he would like her in his life, but Alice hesitates to respond. Alice realizes that she feels nothing for Cesar, but she doesn't want to lose him to keep her job, so she lies to him by saying that she loves him too and decides to give him the most beautiful night of his life and get closer. With time, and one day, Cesar puts a letter on a tree trunk and asks Alice to follow the arrow's path until she reaches a chair and also asks her to turn on a song recorder. Cesar suddenly appears on his motorcycle and takes Alice with him for a ride around the city aimlessly, and Alice doesn't understand the meaning of everything he did before but decides to ignore what's happening and continues to exploit him until she can achieve her goal in her work. But now she feels confused about whether to continue her relationship with Cesar or break up with him. At night, Cesar surprises Alice when he asks her to sneak into the university with him and then tells her his thoughts about the future with her. But Alice shocks him when she tells him that there is no future for them together because Cesar will be young when Alice grows older, and that means he won't be happy with her, and she tells him she doesn't want him to waste his life and youth with her. Cesar is surprised by Alice's words and doesn't know how to convince her that he loves her and doesn't care about the age difference between them, but Alice was determined to break up. Break up with him. Cesar comes home shocked and falls into such a depression that he can't leave the house. We return to Alice's manager, who is spinning all the scales and tells Alice that work isn't going as well as it used to. The magazine's editor is also more satisfied with Alice's work and surprises her by saying she likes the young man she saw at the fashion show and that he can help them shoot the magazine's commercial. She means Cesar, but Alice tries to explain to the manager that what he's asking is difficult, but the manager threatens to fire her if she doesn't convince Cesar to shoot the magazine's commercial. Alice has to visit Cesar at his place, but Cesar thinks she's come to apologize and rekindle their relationship. But he gets angry again when he discovers she came to see him only for work. Then he leaves, and on the day of the commercial shoot, Alice tries to call Cesar, but he doesn't answer, and she doesn't know how she'll shoot the magazine's commercial without him. Alice's assistant surprises her by saying that Cesar has just arrived, and then he starts the preliminary preparations for the commercial. But Cesar's friend suddenly appears and tells Cesar that Alice approached him to exploit him to get a promotion at her job. And Cesar seems very sad after hearing the truth but pretends during the shoot that he knows nothing about what Alice did to him. Alice couldn't hide her anger during the shoot, then falls into the water and tries to leave, but Alice catches up with him to apologize. But Cesar accuses her of exploiting him and tells her that he discovered her shocking truth, and it seems Alice can't say a word because she realizes she's wrong about him. Moreover, her manager finds out everything that happened and decides to fire her. A few days later, Alice finds Cesar's shoes at her place, then looks at them intently as if she's affected by Cesar's absence and finally realizes she's fallen in love with him even though she's 20 years older than him, and then decides to visit him at the university and confess her love for him in front of all his classmates. Cesar asks Alice what they'll do in the future because she'll get old while he'll be more handsome than her. But Alice tells him she doesn't care about anything in her life now except being with him at the end of the movie. Cesar proves to everyone that a person's age is just a number and that those who love sincerely don't care about age.